With section 2.1, we're going to begin to focus in on specific function types throughout the next chapter and into the following chapter. So in this chapter, we're going to talk about quadratics, we're going to talk about polynomials, we're going to talk about rationals, and then in the following chapter, we're going to talk about exponential and logarithmics. So today we're going to focus in on quadratic functions, and we're going to look at two different ways to write quadratic functions. You are most used to seeing a quadratic written in what is called general form, which is y, or f of x, equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Now with this form, as we know, a, b, and c here are all replaced with numbers. However, those numbers really don't tell us too much about the graph. You can't look at C, for example, and say, oh, that's where it crosses the y-axis. Or you can't look at B and say, oh, the graph is going to be this wide. The one thing you can do is A does tell us whether or not we have an x-axis reflection or not. So that if A is greater than 0, then your parabola is going to open up. And if A is less than 0, then your parabola is going to open down. Now, a couple things about the parabolas here. If you can just sketch on the XY axis just to put a parabola somewhere. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine. But here from the graph, there's a couple of things we should know. First of all, this point right here is the vertex of the graph. And we can find the vertex of the graph by using these letters, which would be replaced with numbers. We can find the x and the y value of that vertex. The x value of the vertex is the opposite of b over 2a. So if we wanted to find whatever this x value here, you take the opposite of b over 2a from your equation. And then if you want to get the y value, that corresponding y value here, you're going to take this x value and plug it in for x. And the way that we say that in pre-calc is by using function notation. So we say f of the opposite of b over 2a. Remember, this means go to function f, which is our equation, and substitute in the opposite of b over 2a, which is your x value. So you can find the vertex with a little bit of work there. Also on this parabola is what is called the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry is first and foremost a vertical line, which means it is the equation x equals. All vertical lines have the equation x equals. Well, as you can see, this axis of symmetry, which means that it's symmetric on one side and on the other, passes through this vertex, which means the x value is the x value of the vertex. So once again, the opposite of b over 2a. And pretty much this is what you can find out from the general form. And this is the one that you've been working with most often when we've been solving quadratics and that kind of stuff. However, there is a second form called the standard form, also known as the vertex form. Standard or vertex form, which looks like this. Y equals a times the quantity, x minus h, quantity squared, plus k. And here, in this equation, a, h, and k are all going to be replaced with numbers. Once again, A here, whether or not it's positive or negative, will tell us if our parabola is opening up or opening down. If it's a negative A value, it opens down. If it's a positive A value, it opens up. If we go back to a sketch of a graph, again, you can sketch whatever you want for your graph. We again have a vertex here, but this time, instead of having to have a formula for our vertex comes right from this equation. The number that's inside the parentheses with x is the x value of your vertex, and the number that's outside is the y value of your vertex. By the way, this makes sense for our transformations because if you go inside, you're moving left or right. Outside is moving up or down. Inside is an x value, outside is the y value. So your vertex here is h comma k. Still have that axis of symmetry. It's still a vertical line. And by the way, we often simplify and say AOS for axis of symmetry, so we don't have to write it all out. And in this case, it's still a vertical line, so it's x equals, but this time the x value of our vertex, which it passes through the vertex, is h. And again, this is the standard form. So what you're going to be asked to do today is you're going to be asked to look at different forms of the equation and identify the vertex, the axis of symmetry, the x-intercepts. Now your book also asks you to take the general form and rewrite it as the standard form, and we'll see how to do that as well in the next video.